The rain hammered Manhattan like it had a personal grudge that night, turning the sidewalks into rivers and the streets into chaos. I gripped the steering wheel of my black Mercedes, cursing under my breath as I crawled through the Upper East Side traffic, my mind still replaying the board meeting where my father had once again reminded me that Harrington Enterprises wasn't going to run itself. At 32, I was the heir apparent, the one expected to close the biggest deals and keep the family name untouchable. Then I saw her, standing under a flickering street lamp, soaked to the bone, her dark coat plastered against her frame, briefcase clutched like a lifeline while taxis ignored her raised hand. Something about the way she stood there, defiant against the downpour, made me pull over without thinking. "Get in," I called through the cracked window, my voice cutting through the storm. She hesitated only a second before sliding into the passenger seat, water dripping everywhere, her breath coming in sharp bursts. "Thanks. My Uber canceled twice, and this storm came out of nowhere." Her voice was low, steady, with a hint of a Midwest accent that didn't belong in this city of sharp edges. Up close, she was striking, sharp cheekbones, green eyes that caught the dashboard light, brown hair plastered to her forehead. "Remi," she said her name was when I asked. "Just Remi. No last name yet," and I didn't push. My apartment was only 10 blocks away, a penthouse overlooking Central Park that my father had gifted me the day I made VP. "You can wait out the worst of it at my place," I offered, surprising myself. "It's pouring too hard to walk anywhere." She laughed softly, a sound that cut through the tension in my chest. "You always pick up strangers in storms, Demi?" I glanced at her, the way my name sounded on her lips already feeling familiar. "Only the ones who look like they could use a break." We pulled into the underground garage, and by the time we reached my door, the conversation had shifted from polite thanks to easy banter about the city's unpredictable weather and impossible deadlines. Inside, I handed her a towel and one of my oversized button-downs, watching as she disappeared into the guest bathroom. The place felt different with someone else in it, warmer, less like the sterile showcase of success my father demanded. When she emerged, hair damp and curling at the ends, sleeves rolled up, something electric passed between us. We sat on the couch with wine I poured to warm us both, talking about everything and nothing. She was a lawyer, she said vaguely, handling big cases that kept her up at night. I told her about the family business, the pressure of being the only child carrying the Harrington legacy in real estate development. Hours slipped by. The storm raged outside, but inside the air thickened with something unspoken. Her laugh when I recounted a disastrous client dinner, the way her fingers brushed mine reaching for the bottle. It all built a pull I hadn't felt in years. I'd buried that part of myself deep since college, the part that knew I preferred women, because Harrington men didn't have daughters who loved women. Not if they wanted the empire. Remi caught me staring once, and instead of looking away, she held my gaze. "You're not what I expected from someone who lives like this," she said quietly. "Neither are you," I replied, my voice barely above a whisper. By midnight, the rain still hadn't let up, and I offered her the guest room. She accepted, but neither of us moved to end the night. We talked until the sky lightened to gray, sharing pieces of ourselves like secrets traded in the dark. When she finally stood to head to bed, she paused in the hallway. "Thank you, Demi. Really." Her hand lingered on my arm, warm through the fabric, and for the first time in forever, the weight of my ambition felt a little lighter. I lay awake long after, staring at the ceiling, wondering what the hell I'd just invited into my perfectly controlled life. Little did I know she was already the storm that would tear it all down. The next morning dawned gray and heavy, the city still dripping from the night's fury. Remi was already in the kitchen when I emerged, hair pulled back, wearing the same button-down like it was made for her. She'd made coffee, strong black, exactly how I took it, and slid a mug across the marble island with a small smile. "Figured you for a no-sugar type." I laughed, leaning against the counter, feeling the unfamiliar ease settle between us. Perceptive for someone I met 12 hours ago. We talked over breakfast like old friends, or something more, the conversation flowing from favorite hidden bookstores in the village to the cutthroat world of New York ambition. She didn't pry about my family, and I kept my questions about her cases light. But every glance, every shared laugh carried that undercurrent. The way her eyes traced my face when she thought I wasn't looking, the the brush of her knee against mine under the table. By the time the rain eased to a drizzle, I offered to drive her wherever she needed. "Court today," she said casually, gathering her things. "Big one. But thanks again. Last night it was exactly what I needed." I dropped her at a sleek glass building downtown, watching her disappear into the crowd with a wave that felt like a promise. The rest of my day blurred into meetings, my father barking orders about the latest acquisition, the board pressuring for faster growth, whispers of lawsuits circling our developments like sharks. Harrington Enterprises had been accused of everything from tenant harassment to skirting environmental regs on our waterfront projects. I pushed it all aside, but Remi's face kept flashing in my mind. That evening my phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. "Thanks for the shelter, stranger. Coffee tomorrow?" My treat. Remi. I stared at it longer than I should have. Saying yes meant stepping outside the lines I'd drawn for myself. But I typed back anyway. "Only if it's the good stuff from that place on 5th. We met at a quiet cafe the next afternoon, tucked away from the financial district rush. She was in a tailored navy suit, every inch the professional, and I felt the pull stronger than before. Conversation turned personal, her move from Chicago 3 years ago for a fresh start, my mother's death when I was 20 leaving me alone with a father who saw weakness as failure. "He expects perfection," I admitted, stirring my latte. "No room for complications." Remi's hand covered mine briefly on the table, hidden from view. "Complications make us human, Demi. Maybe that's what you need." The touch lingered in my skin for hours after. Over the following weeks, our meetings became routine stolen lunches, late-night walks along the Hudson, always careful, always in shadows. The first time we kissed was in my apartment after a particularly draining day for both of us. She'd shown up unannounced, rain on her coat again, and when I opened the door, the words died in my throat. "I couldn't stop thinking about you," she whispered. Our lips met soft at first, then urgent, years of denial melting away in that single moment. No one had ever made me feel seen like that. But with every touch, every whispered confession in the dark, the guilt gnawed. My father had already hinted at setting me up with the son of a rival developer, merger material. Publicly dating a woman? Career suicide. Remi never pushed for labels, but her eyes held questions I wasn't ready to answer. Work intruded more each day. I caught wind of a major class action suit brewing against us, led by some hotshot attorney from a boutique firm. I buried myself in damage control, making the cold calls to silence complaints, the kind of decisions that kept the empire alive but chipped away at my soul. Remi listened when I vented, never judging, her presence the only anchor. Yet something in her silences felt heavier lately, like she carried secrets of her own. One night, tangled in sheets after another stolen evening, she traced patterns on my shoulder. What if the world knew about us? I stiffened. "It can't, Remi. Not yet. Not ever, maybe." She didn't argue, but the kiss she gave me after felt like a question mark. The tension built slowly, logically. Each secret meeting deepening the bond, each boardroom victory at work reminding me what I stood to lose. I was falling hard, and for the first time survival didn't feel like enough. 3 months in, the illusion cracked wide open on a Tuesday that started like any other. I sat in the executive conference room, reviewing the latest threat assessment from our legal team. The class action suit had a name now. Lang vs. Harrington Enterprises. Lead counsel. Remi Lang. The file photo stared back at me. Her face, professional smile, the same eyes that had looked at me with such tenderness the night before. My stomach dropped like a stone. Remi, the woman who knew every hidden scar on my heart, was the one poised to drag my family through the mud, seeking billions in damages for displaced tenants and environmental cover-ups. The pieces clicked with brutal clarity. Her vague answers about work, the late nights, the way she'd asked casual questions about company policies that now felt like reconnaissance. I confronted her that evening in my apartment, the same place where it all began. Rain pattered against the windows again, ironic soundtrack to the storm inside. "You're suing us," I said flatly, the folder from work clenched in my fist. She didn't flinch, setting down her wineglass with steady hands. "I didn't know who you were at first, Demi." "Not fully. By the time I realized I was already in too deep." Her voice cracked just slightly. "This case isn't personal. Those families lost everything because of Harrington shortcuts. I took it because it's right. I paced the living room, ambition and love colliding head-on. Right? You used me. Every conversation every night. Was it all to get dirt? No, she said sharply, stepping closer. What we have is real. But I won't walk away from justice either. Can you? The question hung like a guillotine. I wanted to hate her, to throw her out and bury the relationship like every other secret. Instead, I pulled her into a fierce kiss, angry and desperate, because walking away wasn't an option anymore. That night marked the shift. We argued in whispers, made love like it might be the last time, then argued again. I made my first cold decision. I fed her just enough inside information to keep her close, harmless details, I told myself, while quietly directing our lawyers to counter every move. My father praised my instincts in meetings, unaware the leaks came from me. Remi, for her part, pushed the case harder, her ambition matching mine. I love you, she'd say in the dark. But I won't let your family destroy more lives. The duality tore at me. At work, I became ruthless, firing mid-level managers who might talk, approving settlements that silence victims without admitting fault. Each choice felt like another brick in the wall between the woman I was with, Remi, and the heir I had to be. Near misses piled up. Once my father almost saw us at a charity gala. I ducked into a side room, heart pounding, whispering to Remi to leave separately. Exposure loomed like a shadow, threatening everything, my promotion, her career, our fragile world. Yet the love grew fiercer in the secrecy. We stole weekends in the Hamptons under fake names, where for brief hours the power struggle faded. But cause and effect were merciless. Every tender moment bred deeper guilt. Every strategic betrayal at work widened the crack in my soul. I started questioning which side I was really on. Remi sensed it, her touches more urgent, her questions sharper. Choose me, Demi. Not the Empire. I couldn't answer. The storm we'd started that rainy night was now a hurricane, and neither of us could outrun it. The boardroom wars escalated with surgical precision. I sat at the head of the long oak table, my father's approving nod burning into my skin as I presented the latest defense strategy. Subpoenas designed to bury Remi's firm in paperwork. Expert witnesses bought and paid for to discredit the plaintiffs. This Lang woman is good, one director muttered, but we'll crush her. I smiled thinly, the words tasting like ash. Crush her. The woman whose laugh I woke up to some mornings, whose hand fit perfectly in mine during those hidden drives upstate. Remi fought back just as coldly. Discovery documents arrived like volleys, each one exposing cracks in Harrington's foundation I'd helped patch. She never used what I'd whispered in confidence. Not directly, but the timing of her motions felt too perfect, too informed. We met in secret still, the apartment now a battlefield disguised as sanctuary. You're leaking to them, I accused one night after a particularly brutal hearing prep. She stood by the window, city lights reflecting in her eyes. And you're sabotaging my witnesses. We both knew this would happen, Demi. Love doesn't erase the lines. The argument dissolved into desperate closeness, clothes shed like armor, bodies saying what words couldn't. But afterward, lying tangled together, the silence screamed the truth. Survival demanded sacrifice. My next move was the coldest yet. I personally reviewed the personnel files and recommended terminating 3 longtime employees who had evidence that could help Remi's case. Framed it as budget cuts, but I knew the truth. Their lives upended so the Empire endured. My father clapped my shoulder afterward. You're finally thinking like a Harrington. The praise hollowed me. Remi confronted me days later, eyes blazing in a dimly lit bar we'd claimed as neutral ground. Those people had families, Demi. You did that. To protect us. I shot back, voice low. If the case blows up, so do we. She shook her head. Tears she refused to shed glistening. Protecting us by becoming them? That's not the woman I fell for. The betrayal cut both ways. She countered by filing an emergency motion that forced us into emergency depositions, putting me on the stand where her questions danced dangerously close to personal. I held the line, but the strain showed. Sleepless nights, snapped tempers at work. Near exposure hit hardest at a company retreat. My father cornered me about settling down, pushing the arranged merger again. Remi texted me from across the room where she'd somehow secured an invite as opposing counsel for optics. I miss you already. I deleted it immediately, heart racing. The power struggle bled into our private world. Small decisions snowballed. I delayed sharing key financials with her under the guise of caution. She withheld updates on settlement offers. Each choice logical, each consequence irreversible. Trust eroding like sand under tide. Yet the love persisted, stubborn and raw. In quiet moments, she'd pull me close and murmur, "We're bigger than this fight." I wanted to believe her. But ambition whispered louder every day, reminding me the throne was almost mine if I just stayed the course. The tension coiled tighter, ready to snap. One wrong reveal, and everything, love, legacy, us, would shatter beyond repair. Court dates loomed like executioners as summer bled into fall. I spent endless hours in strategy sessions, my father's health declining under the pressure. Eyes on me to deliver the knockout. End this, Demi. Make them regret ever challenging us. His words echoed my own cold calculus. I authorized private investigators to dig into Remi's past. Nothing damning, but enough to cast doubt on her motives and motions. It felt like stabbing my own heart. She retaliated with a brilliant procedural win, compelling discovery that exposed internal emails I'd authored years ago downplaying safety concerns. The team scrambled. I stayed up 3 nights rewriting narratives. Our secret meetings grew rarer, more charged. One rainy evening in October, she appeared at my door unannounced, soaked again like the night we met. "I can't do this anymore," she said, voice breaking as I pulled her inside. "Loving you while destroying everything you built." We stood in the foyer, water pooling at our feet. And for the first time I saw the toll on her. The shadows under her eyes, the way her shoulders carried the weight of justice and guilt. I kissed her then, fierce and pleading. "Don't leave. We'll find a way." But the way forward narrowed daily. I made the hardest call yet. Quietly advising my father to settle out of court for a fraction of what Remi demanded. Framing it as strategic retreat while ensuring the agreement included non-disclosure clauses that protected me. It bought time, but Remi saw through it in court. Her eyes met mine across the aisle during arguments, hurt flashing before professional steel took over. The near miss that nearly ended us came during a late strategy dinner at my father's townhouse. Remi's name came up, and I froze when he said, "That Lang woman reminds me of someone. You ever cross paths outside work?" I lied smoothly, but sweat beaded on my neck. Later alone I texted Remi. "Too close. We need space." Her reply was simple. "Space won't fix what we are." Internal war raged. Ambition screamed to cut ties, protect the CEO seat now within reach. Love whispered to burn it all down. I chose a middle path, cold, calculated. Feeding her just enough to weaken our position without full surrender, hoping it would force a settlement that let us both walk away intact. Remi sensed the manipulation. Our next encounter was explosive. "You're playing both sides," she accused in the apartment, voice low and furious. "Using me to save your throne." "And you're using what we have to win your case," I countered. Silence fell, heavy with truth. Yet when she reached for me, I didn't pull away. The passion that night carried desperation, every touch a plea for the impossible. As leaves turned and the trial date fixed, the cause-effect chain tightened. My betrayal strengthened her resolve. Her persistence hardened my ambition. We were 2 sides of the same coin, spinning toward collision. I lay awake beside her one final stolen night, tracing her profile in the dark, wondering if love this deep could survive the choices we'd already made. The answer felt terrifyingly clear. The courtroom on the trial's opening day crackled with electricity, cameras flashing outside as Remi stood to deliver her opening statement. I sat behind our defense table, suit armor stiff, watching the woman I loved dismantle my family's empire with precise, devastating words. Harrington Enterprises didn't just cut corners, they shattered lives for profit. Her voice never wavered, green eyes occasionally flicking to mine with a pain that mirrored my own. The weeks that followed were a brutal dance of evidence and cross-examinations. I testified under oath, delivering the scripted denials my team had drilled into me, each word a fresh wound. Remi's questions probed deeper than the case, touching wounds only she knew. And when decisions were made at the highest levels, did personal loyalty ever conflict with corporate duty? The courtroom held its breath. I answered coolly, but inside I fractured. My father watched from the gallery, pride in his eyes for the first time in years. That night, after a particularly vicious day, Remi showed up at my door one last time. "It's over, Demi. The evidence is ironclad. Settle fully, or watch it all burn." Tears streaked her face for the first time. "Choose us. Walk away from the lies." I stood frozen, the empire I'd killed for crumbling in real time. In that moment, ambition and love stared each other down. I chose survival, the cold path I'd paved. "I can't," I whispered. "This is who I am." She left without another word, the door closing like a final verdict. The settlement came days later. Massive but not ruinous. My calculated leaks had softened the blow just enough. Harrington survived. I took the CEO chair my father handed over with shaking hands. But victory tasted like ash. Remi vanished from my life, her firm moving on to the next fight. I never saw her again. Nights in the penthouse echoed with emptiness. The rain outside a constant reminder of the stranger I'd once sheltered. The woman who taught me love could be real and still not enough. Years later, standing at the top, I understood the cost. Every step forward had left irreversible damage. The empire stood, but the heart that built it was gone. True or false? In the end, ambition always triumphs over love when survival is on the line.